But when it comes to local politics, state government, we are not as informed as we should be. And the intention in the beginning, when the federalism was formed, was that local governance would affect your life much more than a federal governance would. So we should be more aware, ideally, about the local governance, and that's what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, right? There's so much more focus. Like every so a lot is happening in the federally. Like hi guys, welcome to another episode of Talk to Shishan. Today we have a pretty chill episode. We have a pretty good episode actually. I have Pawan who usually joins me in the News Nonsense More podcast, where we talk about current events and news. We try to meet there at least once a month, but with someone having kids and a job and life, sometimes it's pretty difficult to do the podcast. But we did say in 2026 we'd be doing more live events over here and just being able to talk about the news, talk about what's going on. And Pawan being our news correspondent, this is his first time coming on the Talk to Shushan channel, where I have been kind of talking about news and current stories, not more so political, but kind of related to politics because everything nowadays is related to politics. But however, I would like to thank and welcome Pawan from Facts Opinion to Talk to Shishant. What's up, Pawan? What's going on?
It's all going good. How are you? Look at you here managing second channel when people are not able to manage their
Yeah,
single one.
it's well, at least to my defense, I don't have a kid, and I mean to your defense, I don't have a kid, so it's pretty easy to do that, right? You have your own curfew as a parent. You kind of have to wait for your kid to go to sleep. So,
Oh, yes. Yep,
but yeah,
there are that, but everybody's doing their own battle, so everybody's busy, I'm sure. And I know you manage a lot. You're a really good time management guy, and I know we all could learn a thing or two from you.
yeah, we'll see what happens with that time management. It's easier said than done. But yeah, I know. Like, so we want to talk about a couple of things. We were discussing about in our chat, and we usually talk, the time when we have some time about
Hmm.
the District 9 special election, about what's going on in all of these different counties,
Yeah.
these special elections, how Democrats are flipping seats in like deep red districts, right? And surprisingly, our district, when what was it? Who I forgot the guy's name, but
Taylor Emmett.
yeah,
Taylor
yeah,
Emmett.
yeah. He won the District 9, and he didn't even just win by small margins. He won by outstanding numbers.
Yes.
And I was talking about this when I go to the gym with a couple of guys, older white guys.
Hmm.
One of the guys was like, nah, nah, he only won because it was a low voter turnout. It was a low voter turnout, which I did go back and check. It was like a
Hmm.
20% drop,
Yeah.
but I don't think that 20% drop would have made any much of a difference because the margins he won by was so much. I don't think that 20% would have made any blimp. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion, but yeah, but surprisingly, that seat is again up for re-election this November as well.
Hmm.
So that's
Yes.
something that was kind of surprising to me. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like okay, it's gonna kind of continue going forward, but not really. So what do you have to say about that? So since you've done some excessive research.
Yeah, 100%. So, in that particular race, as well as other races across the country that happened last year, we talked about this in your channel before in News Nonsense More. It was in Virginia, New Jersey, off year election, runoff elections like this one. They're all hinting towards a different thing than your conventional wisdom would say, especially in the election where any of the president, it's not a presidential cycle, right? But still it is crucial and important ones. And we have seen across the country turnout is decent. It's not bad for an off year run off, single elections. It's good, it's decent, it's more than decent, actually. It's really good. And the swing there in demographics, for example, Hispanic population, which is the key demographic that shift and switches between different candidates and different parties among um, in different elections, they have shifted hard towards left, towards blue, towards the Democratic Party. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But what I want to talk about today is the Texas Governance 101. So, for example, like you just said, you were not worried about they are gonna run for re-election again back in November, right?
Mhm.
So what does that mean? Why is that happening? It's because we all are pretty steeped into, pretty informed about the federal national elections, national governance. But when it comes to local politics, state government, we are not as informed as we should be. And the intention in the beginning, when the federalism was formed, was that local governance would affect your life much more than a federal governance would. So we should be more aware, ideally, about the local governance, and that's what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, right? There's so much more focus. Like a lot is happening in the federally. Like no one really gives pays any attention to what's happening locally.
Yeah.
But also because of what's happening so much federally, a lot of these Republicans, especially in the local level, who the ones who especially support Trump are the ones that are losing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially the ones that are openly supporting him. The ones who kind of have a little bit of fight back, especially even in deep red states, are the ones who semi support the release of Epstein files. You know, like
Mm.
I feel like what's happening is Republicans themselves are kind of distancing themselves from Trump, but in a subtle way where they don't feel the wrath of Trump. Does that make sense? Because every time he tries to every time he tries to like people try to kind of veer away from Trump, they're kind of like they've always kind of like being yelled at by him, right? It's the father yelling at the kid like, "What are you doing? How can you do that to your parents?" kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
and he's more deranged when it comes to this particular term, right? With everything that's happening. But going more to the local elections, I mean, I do think there is a huge shift from the federal, like everybody looking at this thing federally to more of a local level because I feel like Donald Trump has really hurt the image of the Republican Party. The Republican Party's image is down in the gutter right now. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that they are struggling in these special elections in deep red states, that just means that either the Republican voters have lost any form of faith in their party system. You have like guys like Nick Fuentes openly calling out like screw Trump, screw MAGA, screw the Republican Party, and you're talking about a groiper who's saying
Mm-hmm.
screw the Republican Party where the Republican parties are full of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know like if that's something you kind of see changing because of the impact of what's happening in the federal government per se with this administration.
Yes. So to your first point, that everything is, we are all focused towards the federal government, and it makes sense because Donald Trump is kind of, he feeds off of the attention, right? He wants to be in the news, be it good news, bad news, and he's a guy who comes from TV background where they say there is no bad publicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he embodies that. He's the epitome of that. There is no such thing as bad publicity. And I think that is one of the major reasons why we cannot talk about local governance, local government, and state government, which is much more important, as I said, than the federal government. And to your second point, yes, I do think there is some distancing we are seeing, um, mostly because Trump is, I think, kind of almost going into this lame duck period. One is because of his approval rate being so damn low. The other is just his way of governing so far. Any other government, any other president at this phase most likely would not be, because they would be wanting to get his endorsement, right? They would want him to sway the midterms for them. But Republicans are on the different kind of boat right now. They want to distance from Trump so that they have a decent chance to keep the House, keep the Senate. I think there's a good chance they'll keep the Senate, but House is looking less and less likely. I think 20-25% to 30% is what the probabilities are looking right now for Republican Party to keep the House, which is for an incumbent party, it's too low. And I think we're seeing
Yeah.
that in down the ballot cases across the
Even
country.
even the restructuring of the gerrymandering kind of blew up in their face too. Like
Yeah.
it seems like California is gonna like eat up some of their seats, and
Yeah.
then even the Texas gerrymandering, it kind of backfired on them because they saw more like democratic winners out of these special elections and stuff like that, and hoping that's what's
Yeah,
gonna
and I
happen.
think it also energized the base, because when you do not actively suppress voters' voice, they are kind of living their life, not really into politics. They're just staying at home. They would not show up. They would not vote against you. Neither they would vote for you, which generally helps the Republican Party. But with this overt supposition that Trump, quote unquote, he said, "I deserve 5 more seats." That was, I think, has broken the threshold for so many different Democrats who would not otherwise be voting. For example, he was on the ballot in 2024. A lot of Democrats, a lot of voter did not turn up in Texas, but they are gonna. It looks like, if you are looking at the early polling in across different counties, I was looking at Tarrant counties today. From what the early election turnout was the last cycle, right, this exactly at this phase, it's almost doubled. That's a lot of people voting early. That's a lot of people voting. I think you can reasonably say that turnout is going to be really good, and that has generally helped the Democratic Party, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I feel like just seeing like states like Texas kind of like flipping the little seats, because like District 9 was like, I didn't realize they have not someone had not won here since the last like 20 plus years.
Hmm.
That was the statistics on this, right?
Yeah.
And even I think with in Tennessee or something like that,
Tennessee.
someone, yeah, Tennessee, and that was like 50 years, or was it
So
Louisiana? I forget, it was one of those
maybe
states.
Louisiana, because I think you're talking about Oklahoma, uh, but Tennessee's something like Republican did win, but the margin
Oh
was
yeah,
eaten
yeah,
up
yeah.
significantly. Like I think previously Trump had won that state with multiple digits, like double-digit margin.
Hmm.
But this time around, the margin was, I think, 3 points or 4 points, which is much lower
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a deep red state in Tennessee.
Yeah, it was I think it was like Louisiana. That's where like it was a shock victory or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's the one I was thinking, because I mean, like, so much is happening. It's so hard to keep track of like what's going on, you know.
Exactly. So many different elections that we do not typically
Yeah.
pay attention to.
But you said you wanted to kind of go with your 101. So if you wanted to like tell the
Oh
viewers and stuff
yes.
like that what you're talking about, what it is, I might chime in while you're talking, and
Mhm.
so if you like to take
Yeah,
it away.
we'll do this in a Q&A fashion. So a pop quiz for you to
Oh
begin with.
man, I
Okay.
suck at
Uh, and,
pop quizzes.
and you do not have to answer this one right now. We will let you do this at the end of the segment. So the question: who do you think has more power, senator from Texas in the U.S. Senate, the governor of Texas, or the lieutenant governor of Texas?
Oh, that's a good one. So you're talking about the senator of Texas. Are you mean within the state, or are you talking about like a Ted Cruz kind of guy?
Ted Cruz or John Cornyn right now?
I think the Senate is more based off of like numbers. So I don't think Ted Cruz is that influential for Texas, because he always runs away whenever something happens. Governor wise, I think governor, again, the governor is kind of like a president, right? He needs to have the Senate to kind of the lieutenant to kind of like get stuff done. So I would think lieutenant is probably the most powerful in within the state itself.
Yes, lieutenant governor is the most powerful. So we might have to cut this part one, part day. So you got the answer right. So it doesn't add suspense towards the end. So we might have to cut this part.
No, no, no.
Uh,
But go ahead. But like, because But there's some people who are listening to you might have just answered before I gave that long
Hmm.
reasoning, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, explain to them like why the lieutenant is the more of a powerful individual within the state itself.
Yes, of course. First, let me break down the difference between the federal government and the state government, right? So you have federal government that obviously sits in Washington D.C. and decides fate for 330 million Americans, 360 million Americans, whatever the number is right now, and beyond. It also impacts the entire world. So the federal government obviously takes active part in foreign policy, US defense. There is US federal tax policies and other important things. And you have the state government, on the other hand, that supports in the defense part of it, but it is more day-to-day law enforcement, right? The cops, you have National Guard that comes under um, governor's purview, but he only activates them when there is a emergency, huge emergency, and so on. And you have education, that is the state government's job, right? So in what kind of representation does Texas have in the US federal government? So there are two senators which you just mentioned, John Cornyn and Ted Cruz currently. So what their job would be is to say confirm different nominees to the Supreme Court, to cabinet, and obviously do a overview over the executive body through committees, oversight and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 38 other representative that represent Texas in the US House, and 38 is the second highest number, I think, apart from California's. So which is huge, and this is based on population, so obviously Texas represents that there.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 38 different um, people that are representing Texas in the US government's lower house, the House of Representatives.
Representatives, yeah.
Yes. And what they do is they obviously look at the purse. They're the one that handle purse for the country. That means taxation, where the funds are distributed, uh, federal emergency regulation, and support to the local governance, and so on, right? So that's how the structure in federal government is set up. Now we come to state government, which is really, really unique in Texas. As it's not the similar to other state, and that is where Texas is unique, I think. And this is all based on the Constitution of Texas, which is the second longest constitution in US, after Alabama, or yeah, I think it's Alabama. So on the so we did talk about the federal government. Now we're back to state government. So what does the state government represent? It obviously represents people of Texas. And what is the structure like? So you have the governor directly elected. You have the lieutenant governor that is also directly elected. So it's not a single ticket. So in any kind of election, you are not in unison selecting the governor and the lieutenant governor like you do in president, vice president.
Hmm. Okay,
And
that's interesting.
that's where the difference comes in. It's not a unified ticket. And there are other various different bodies. For example, I've written down here so that I don't get it wrong. So you have attorney general that is not nominated by the governor. Like in
Hmm.
US's case, you have the attorney general that is obviously nominated and confirmed by the Senate, but nominated by the president, right? So president has that power on them to fire or hire them. And you have comptroller, land commissioner, agriculture commissioner, and railroad commissioner.
Hmm.
They are all separately elected by the people themselves. And this is why the governor is not as powerful as a president would be. Like, I know you said governor is like a president, but it's not quite there. So governor does have power to call special sessions of its Texas own legislative sessions, but it does not have the power to fire and hire cabinet level positions in Texas.
So,
So,
so my one question is, okay, that's I didn't know that. So I thought like a lot of it was kind of mirrored to the federal government. So
mhm.
each like attorney general slash lieutenant, they actually have their own election. So you could have like a Republican governor, but somehow elect like a Democratic like lieutenant.
Yes.
So tell me in a scenario if let's say the governor is Republican, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then you have a lieutenant that's into power that is Democratic. So
Mm-hmm.
what type of challenge does that bring about the for the governor of Texas? Because at that point in time you'll have a little bit of disparity, right?
Yeah.
Between like, hey, I can't really fire this guy. I don't agree with him. I have to wait for the next election to come in, and then
Mm-hmm.
somehow like the change will happen. So what actually what kind of situation does that actually create in a situation like that? Let's say there's like three people that are elected by the people, and three people have completely three different ideologies, three different parties, or whatever the case is. So, what do you think in that happens in that scenario?
Yeah, really good question, guys. So this incidentally has happened in Texas before. For example, what I mean by that is, so Texas learned really early. So during their early phase in 1870s, the governor was the executive. He had all the power, right? Or he or she back then, uh, whoever it could be. They had a lot of power. It is obviously he, but putting a finer point on it. But they had a lot of power. So what Texas did, being Texas, it was conservative. It still is very conservative. What conservatism means is small government, right? You don't want government coming into your house or infringing upon your rights, taking care of you day to day. You do not want that. So what the people obviously wanted and still want is not as powerful governor. So they knowingly, deliberately, through various different amendments, they added these kind of provisions so that no one single person is that much powerful. Do not have A single person does not have a lot of power over them. It was intended, and I think the system has held well together. I like this small government kind of thing where agriculture is someone else, railroad is someone else, and there is a lot less corruption that can happen when you are all independently elected. You can all be held to people's annual checkup or biannual checkup, whatever that is. So I think the system has held together. And to answer your question directly, that is the beauty of democracy, right? You
Mm,
may not agree with people on so many different things, but then you have to work with them together. You need to work with them together. And Constitution of Texas also demarcates this role very nicely. For example, what lieutenant governor can do is to he can I'm saying he because I don't think any she has been in the office yet, and right now it's obviously a guy.
mm,
um, what a lieutenant governor can do is call he can assign committee assignments in Senate. So he is the president of the Senate, which is a 31 people chamber. It's the upper house of Texas Legislature, and we haven't gone there yet. So I think that's a good segue to it. 31 in the upper house, and the lieutenant governor can control which bills can be discussed, which bills can be brought in, which bills he can quash quietly without bring it to any you know bring it to any committee, and he can also decide which committees get a said bill. So yes, lieutenant governor, many of the political scientists in based around Texas agree that lieutenant governor is the most powerful single person in Texas system. But that does not mean governor does not have any power. He has like veto power. Obviously, veto he's the only one who can use the veto power, and that
mm.
can be overridden by 2/3 of majority in each of the houses for any of the bills. And that's the same in the federal government as well. And he has other oversight roles over the state. But yes, lieutenant governor surpasses the governor in
Yeah, it seems
power.
like the governor won't even know what type of bill is coming to a vote if the lieutenant governor doesn't decide it. So if let's say for example if
Yeah.
a government wants to pass some sort of reform in I don't know in rent freezing like Mamdani is doing in New York or
Mhm.
wants to play that game,
Yeah.
uh, it's pretty tough. And plus, like I feel like I do understand what you're saying about limiting the level of corruption, But my God, man, I think Texas has kind of like is corrupt. They must have done a lot of work to make sure like Texas stayed Republican for all those many years,
Mm-hmm.
because they have kind of like, because remember at one point Texas used to vote blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
It used to go
Yeah.
back and forth. It was the same state that voted blue for what's his name? God damn, what I forgot his name. The one who got assassinated. What was his name? The president.
JFK.
JFK. Yeah,
JFK.
yeah. It voted blue
Fifties.
for JFK. If you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, and that's why he was in Texas, because he was doing the whole like rally
Dallas.
in Dallas. So it's pretty crazy to see like how that party has kind of held control over Texas for such a long time. I feel like this time around, I do see a change happening, more so because of the fallout from the Epstein files for Trump, the way I was handling the economy. I think Supreme Court, uh, you know, giving him that loss about tariffs overall. So which is a good thing, right, for the country
Mm-hmm.
overall.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think even Texas in itself locally will change, because I feel like you need one type of candidate like Mamdani to come into Texas to put a lot of pressure in these different roles.
Yeah.
The lieutenant, the attorney general, and even the governor itself. Because what he's doing right now to New York's governor about wanting to raise the income tax on the super rich, and he's telling them, hey, listen, we need this budget. Um, Either the property taxes go up for
Mm-hmm.
20 million, 30 million middle class and lower middle class people, or you tax the rich. And now the government is put in a very tough situation. Oh shit! Like, do I lose my vote? I mean, he'll still the people still vote him into power, but me as a governor, I might lose my spot. So I feel like that's a really good game, and I think that's literally the only thing Texas needs at this point in time.
Yep, there is another really interesting thing about Texas as well. So, Texas's own state house, the lower house, it only meets once in 2 years. It's a biennial session, and it only meets for 140 days. So, and the Texas does not want people to have, politics as their job, which is why this system holds. And I was checking their salary; they only at least on paper, they make $7,200 or $7,400 a year. That's for the tech
Damn,
house,
really?
lower house. So that's not a lot of money. You cannot make do with that, right? So politics is not a full time job in Texas.
That's actually so that means they're trying to promote people who actually want to do good
Hmm.
for the community. Who would have
Yeah.
thought, right? Texas has a
Yep.
system like that.
That is the idea, and of course the decentralization of power, giving power to different people but not concentrating in a single one. Yes, the governor is the face of the state and he is the political leader, of course, but he doesn't have a lot of power except, do you know, he can pardon certain people who are committed of state crimes, but that also has to be reviewed by an independent board.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not a
It's
blanket pardon. It's not a blanket
it's
check.
it's not like what Donald Trump's doing for everybody in the federal side.
No, it's not. And that it you can connect quid pro quo in that, but this one is a little bit extra layer there. It doesn't mean
Mm.
it cannot happen here, right? But there's extra layer of check that needs to happen.
So honestly speaking, do you feel like the Texas system would work better in a federal level? What do you think?
I so before this term of Donald Trump, I did not think there was a need of it, right? Because do you? I'm sure you would agree that Attorney General from Joe Biden's period or period before that, even Donald Trump's first term, it was not as overt infringement of Attorney General's right? The
Yeah.
power of prosecution, the power of prosecution was independent to not even the Attorney General, but each prosecutor themselves could bring in cases without said so of the leader, and that hasn't happened this time around. It's going against Trump's perceived or real political enemies. Even if it's real, it's not worth it. It's not. allowed. It's not how the system should work. This is how the systems are broken. And Trump has shown a lot of vulnerabilities in the system, as you can see.
Yeah, I mean, I made a video about Pam Bondi like in her hearing. I mean, that was a complete circus for her.
Exactly.
I think that after this Trump administration is done,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
she's not gonna have a job. I think if anything worse happens, I think she's the first to be thrown under the bus. Like just the only thing I remember from that is like, have you seen the stock market? That's not even the attorney general's job. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, why are you talking about the stock market when they're talking about the Epstein files? And
Yeah.
calling it a hoax.
Yeah, she was
So,
clearly looking like someone who went there to defend Trump, which is not a job, right? Her
hmm
job is to enforce the law from her office, which is the highest office in the land as a law enforcement officer. And she was not doing that. She was just there to protect Trump's interest and his Epstein class buddies. John Ossoff from Georgia said this. This is the Epstein class led government, and I can see why. He said that it makes sense. Like 12 or 13 of his cabinets are mentioned there.
yeah,
Now,
it's crazy.
being mentioned in Epstein files is not a crime per se, but if you are in
It's a
bed
bad
with
look.
yeah, when if you're in a bed with someone who has been convicted of sex crime in 2009, and after that you still keep him friends,
Yeah.
sending emails and being close to him, then that's a bad look.
I mean, at
It's
this
just
point
like
in time, like, if your name's on there, I think what Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are trying to like come in front of the Senate committee hearing,
hmm
and all of a sudden you see the tone of Trump. Hey, Bill, he's a nice guy. He really took care of me at that point. Kind of like telling him, Bill, don't do this.
hmm
Don't do this.
you have my
It's,
back, I'll have your
yeah,
back.
I got your back, man. I'm just gonna stop saying whatever it is. I won't say lock her up anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's a circus at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, trying to finish it off for the like state local government. So take it
Yeah,
away.
again, thank you. I want to bring it back to the Texas governance. So this was we just talked about the state government, right? There are even lower levels like county levels, uh, governance that impact our lives much more than a president of the United States will have. So
hmm
my plea to you, to everyone listening from your channel, from my channel, is go and vote for, you know l- the smallest of office that you think it may not have as much impact on your life, but it does, because the county officer is the one who is evaluating your home's value. It's not the president of the United States. So it directly affects your purse. So it's just one example. The other is, it matters what kind of infrastructures, what kind of factories are built nearby your house,
hmm
right? To check if the factory is producing harmful gases, toxic pollutants. It's not
hmm
president of the United States not going to come here and police that. It's going to be your local
Local
county
government.
commission,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
mean, I think that's a really good point because he's doing international stuff. Why would he come and like worry about laws that's being
Exactly.
passed in within state level as where they're building a factory or where a
Mhm.
company might be allowed to dump their toxic materials, right?
Yeah,
So that is important. I think
exactly.
even the home value, like for example, one of the biggest examples that I can give is the fact that when I moved from New York and I came over here, I had no idea like they would just come over here and make up the valuation of your house. That was one of the craziest things I ever heard of. Like, what? You're just gonna like tax me based on what you think my house is worth? My first question to them was like, "Will you come and sell my house for whatever you think it's worth?" Doesn't make sense, right? So
Yeah.
in that particular scenario, I was like, okay, this doesn't kind of make sense. I do need to see what Texas is all about, and that was more of a culture shock for me.
Hmm.
And when I
Right.
explained this to a lot of people locally too, about, hey, listen, do you know how New York does taxes? How California does taxes? You only pay taxes in New York. Is more of a median, so it's
Hmm.
the burden is
Hmm.
shared between most of the people within that zip code, right? And
Right.
which is fair. So because you can buy the house for a cheaper price, which is great, but the property tax overall is shared, not based off the value of your home. So even if you bought a $200,000 house or someone bought an $800,000 house, the fact of the matter is, the price of the house should not have to affect what property tax you should pay. It's the same property tax within the area and it's shared between everybody. I think that's more fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because there will be expensive houses in that zip code and there will be cheaper houses in that zip code, right? And then in California, apparently it's all about like you pay taxes based off what you purchased the house for. So if you purchase a house for 300,000, that's what it is.
yeah,
It doesn't go up every year based off of like what the valuation is. And Texas, at the rate of what it's growing, I'm pretty sure you can agree that there needs to be some sort of reform. And but that reform can only happen if people understand it and go out and vote.
yeah.
Because if people actually understood a lot of it, you wouldn't see a lot of homeless people. Maybe there would have been rent control, right? There would have been, a way to keep these businesses from like just upping the value of your home because Texas is it's one of the biggest states, right?
Of
It's
course.
bigger than New York and California, and
Hmm.
you have so much land, but somehow the property value in Texas is now catching up with what you see in New York and California while having that much land. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't. It's crazy.
Yeah, so to put a finer point on it. So, for example, because of this decentralized system, you can go and talk to these people that you just said, are increasing the property values or building or approving a traffic light right in front of a house where last couple of weeks there were like maybe three accidents and you want a traffic light there to be protected against oncoming traffic, right? Those kind of things you are done by our local government, and you can go just give them a call, they'll pick it up. They're not that hard to reach.
Hmm.
And it is so easy, much easier, let's say, to have an impact at this level. And that's what affects your life the most anyway. So
Hmm.
my plea is we'll put a link on the description where you can go look up what are the active elections happening around your state or around your district, and please go out, vote this primary election, also go out, vote in the general election. That's where the most of the change we can make. I'm not uh, telling you to vote this way or that way at this point. Just vote. Having your voice heard is one of the most important way to be participating in democracy. And if you believe in democracy, you should vote. It's your most important right and most important responsibility.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely end this segment here. And to my viewers and everybody else, I will put the link down below, like Pawan said. I think it's a very important thing to talk about, especially with the local elections. How much of an effect that can have for you. Just don't think about the president's going to come and lower costs or lower your property taxes, so on and so forth, right?
Mhm.
It's all done at the local level. So if you're interested in wanting to know what's going on, who to vote for, what to know about who even the candidates are, because not many people even know the candidates, because it's very hard for
Yeah,
me to remember the names because they're never on the news, right? But it is
exactly.
important to understand who's actually running, and do a little bit of a Google search. I think like technology is so good to the point where you can actually look at what kind of policies they believe in, uh, what they're planning to do, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of changes happening within the local level, especially in my district, in District 9. Um, I researched it myself. I read about it. I was approached by it. And one of the things I had to do when I went to Nepal just for a family vacation and came back, I had one day to do the vote. I went and did it. And, not trying to brag, but at least I know I voted for a change in my district in Tarrant County, the first Democrat to be elected in 20 plus years in this. Even though it's going to be happening again in November, it kind of I kind of know like what's going to happen again. You know what I mean? It's really good to know that.
Yep.
And yeah, man. With that being said, thank you very much for watching this segment. And remember, guys, make sure you subscribe to both the channels. Let's try to get Pawan to 500 subscribers. Right, that's
Yes,
the most
please.
important thing. I've hit 1,000, but also watch this video so you can get me to 4,000 hour views, and hopefully we do better. And definitely comment below to make sure what we can do better, what more you like us to see, like us doing, and we will try to meet at least once a week. I think we can do that, right, Pawan? We can meet once a
Yeah,
week.
Yeah.
or twice. If you get lucky, get to see us twice a week, right? Because why wouldn't you want to see Pavan and us talk together and all that stuff, right? But yeah, guys, thank you very much. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe to both our channels. Thanks.